Hello everyone, hope you're all doing well. And so this is going to be, I think, my third video for this year, I believe, third or fourth. So I've slowed down, as far as making the videos lately because of the holidays mostly. But this video I heard on one channel which is called Supreme Leader Streams, okay? He is uploading some older videos where Darth Dawkins is speaking. And he uploaded one a little less than 24 hours ago. And I listened to it. And I did hear part of the conversation which drew my attention to something that I had already mentioned earlier. Actually, probably almost 4 years ago. But I'm going to play the part of the video that I listened to where Darth is trying to explain away something that he said earlier. And one thing I notice about Darth Dawkins, okay, whenever he tries to justify anything that he said, which is either inconsistent or is a outright contradiction. Whenever he attempts to do this, he just ends up digging a deeper hole for himself. So it's not getting any better for him. Now, I'm going to let you listen to that part of the clip. Here it is.
We could accuse you of numerous contradictions. Like, for example, when I've debated atheists and I say that God is unfalsifiable and Christianity is unfalsifiable, then they'll turn to another videotape where somebody said, well, how would you falsify Christianity? And I said, oh, well, from your perspective, if you found the dead body of Jesus. And they say, look, he contradicted himself because he says Christianity can't be falsified. But in another video, he said you could falsify. Do you see how stupid this is?
Now, let me state from any of the videos that I've did referring to this, because I certainly hope Darth is not talking about the videos that I posted. Because in the videos I posted, and I'm going to let you listen to those videos right now, it doesn't say anything about from your perspective or from someone's perspective. That never is mentioned. It never comes up in the conversation. Now, I have two very short clips where Darth was asked that same question. I'm going to let you listen to these two clips. They're very short.
To object to anything in the Bible.
Is God falsifiable?
Okay, no.
Is God a falsifiable proposition? I mean, that God exists? No.
So in those two clips, it was the same question. The interlocutor asked, is God falsifiable? There wasn't anything about, well, from your perspective, or there wasn't anything about, from my perspective. He answered no in both cases. Now, in the conversation where he was, in the Supreme Leader Streams conversation, he brought that up about mentioning that he was speaking to these atheists and he was talking about from their perspective. Now, that did not occur in the video that I was doing my previous video from. That never occurred. Here is that video. Now, by the way, it's important for me to mention that when I tried to find the original video, because I wanted to actually show the entire video, or at least give a link to the entire original video, not a clip or not an edited version. So when I looked for that, I could not find the entire conversation. I found part of the original conversation, which is on the Darwin's Greatest Hits YouTube channel. And under that video, Darwin's Greatest Hits, whoever is the channel owner, said that this is part of the original video. The other part of it is not available. However, this video that he has posted is approximately 12.5 minutes long. And because it is 12.5 minutes long, it is sufficient, beyond sufficient, to show the context of the conversation that took place and to show the context of what Darth was saying in that video. So here, what I did was I edited, because there was a lot of argumentation. There was quite a long time where they were just going back and forth, arguing, or, useless time. Something that I don't want to include, but I'm going to leave the link to that 12-minute video. I'll leave that in the description area. But for right now, I'm editing out what would be, what would be completely useless. It's not relevant to the conversation. Okay, here is that part of the video.
And what Jack has been doing is saying, listen, the concept of evidence is crucially tied to the concept of falsification. If a proposition is put forward that is unfalsifiable, then we can't state what the conditions of verification are for it, and we can't state what the conditions of falsification are for it. These two go hand in hand.
Okay, Ozzy,
so
but you're just talking about the
I'm just going to finish the point.
Okay.
If you cannot specify what the conditions of falsification are for your proposition, how are you going to specify what the conditions of verification are?
Okay, so where I agree with you is you're simply talking about the apprehension of evidence.
Now, I'm going to pause the video right now because I want to point out something which it's interesting, because when I listen to these videos, sometimes I don't pick up on something. But if I listen to it again, then I do pick up on something else. And as I said, this is from an older video. So I've learned more since the original time that I actually posted anything, relative to this. So when I heard it again, I picked up something which I'm going to speak about towards the end of the video. But notice Darth said when he was talking with 𝐰𝐨, he told 𝐰𝐨 that he agreed with 𝐰𝐨. Okay, he's going to do that actually 2 times in this clip.
That's not at all the question. The question that's been put to you for like the last half hour that I've been watching is, how can you have an account of evidence that doesn't crucially incorporate the concept?
Well, I believe that
you can only posit the being that you're talking about when you can't even imagine a condition that would falsify the very possibility of such a being.
Now, coming up, tune in, because this is the part where Darth makes the comment about falsifying the Christian God. Okay, here is that part.
Well, the Christian...
If you think it's necessarily true, then you need an a priori argument.
There are ways of falsifying the Christian God.
I agree, actually. I think there are ways of falsifying the Christian God. I think...
So you clearly heard Darth said, quote, unquote, there are ways to falsify the Christian God. Darth did not have any qualifier. He didn't say anything about, from your perspective. That was never mentioned.
No, but
Ozzy says that's done, but I just don't think that's true. I think that
okay, Ozzy, that's another... Okay, I agree with you there. I'm not...
Okay, that's number 2. It's the second time in the same video where he told 𝐰𝐨 that he agreed with 𝐰𝐨.
Asking you that you accept that that's true, because I understand that you're an agnostic, right?
I'm an atheist, actually.
Okay, because I watched you on another video and you said you were an agnostic.
Darwin?
Notice that 𝐰𝐨 told Darth that he is an atheist. Now, I'm going to get to that point at the end of the video.
Darwin said that he thought that the Christian God could be falsified.
So if the Christian, so Ozzy, if the Christian God exists.
Now, this is a second point that I picked up when I listened to the video again. Darth said, if the Christian God exists. Now, again, I'm going to bring up why this is relevant at the end of the video.
What's bizarre, Ozzy, is he just said that the Christian God could be falsified. So I'm just not understanding any of this. If the Christian God could be falsified, excuse me, I wasn't done, Darwin. I wasn't done. Yeah, so if the Christian God could be falsified, I'm not really understanding why Darwin's deity isn't presenting the criteria which would disconfirm the Christian God and showing us how, in fact, the Christian God entails certain predictive expectations that could falsify it, right? Because he went through this whole thing about how the 𝗥𝗘𝗟𝗏 thesis shows that things can't be falsified, right? In which case we don't understand how there could ever be evidence against anything, right? If it were the case that the 𝗥𝗘𝗏 thesis showed that nothing could ever be falsified, I don't understand how there could be evidence against anything, right? And he then went into this whole thing about how the falsification criterion was overthrown in the attacks on logical positivism. But now, all of a sudden, a surprise to everybody, Darwin's deity announces that the Christian God can indeed be falsified, right? So why are we even having this discussion? Just tell
specify,
us. Just specify what conditions. I wasn't done.
Okay, well, you've been on the mic quite a long time.
You'll have to wait.
Well, wrap it up quickly, Stalker.
One more.
Ozzy, what you don't know,
Darwin, you're
I don't care about the politics between you. I don't care about the politics.
You're hogging the mic and wrap it up.
I need another.
Wrap it up, phony.
So what we're waiting for is for Darwin's deity to provide for us, right, the conditions under which the Christian God hypothesis would be falsified and show us exactly how it is the case, right, that a given set of observations would be inconsistent with the existence of the Christian God. So go ahead, Darwin.
So Ozzy, your big hang-up here is that
you're not answering Jack's question.
No, I don't answer Jack. Jack is a well-known star.
I'm asking the same question.
Okay, good. Well, I don't answer questions that he originates with because he's a well-known stalker of mine.
Oh, wait. You're not going to answer the question that I have.
Ozzy, I guess you're not aware of the previous history. Jack,
I don't care about your history with this fellow.
Okay, good. Well,
I don't know either of you. This is my first time.
I'll explain it some other time. Ozzy, I'll be glad to explain it to you some other time. Now, you raised the issue that you said you didn't know about how we defined omnipotence. Now,
that entire discussion is a red herring. I simply don't know.
It's not a red
herring. What do you think are the conditions of falsification?
Because if we come to an agreement, Ozzy, it's not a red herring at all. If we come to an agreement.
Okay, now I stand to correct myself because there Darth mentioned again coming to an agreement with an atheist. So that's actually the third time that Darth has mentioned about an agreement.
Would be answered yes.
Okay, so
but it's a question here. You just said that the Christian God was falsifiable, and you've been asked by Jack, and now I'm asking the same question. That's why I entered the hang-up. Could you specify?
Sure. You finding the dead body of Jesus Christ.
Now you heard Darth where he said, this is where he mentioned about how could you falsify the Christian God, okay? Not Zeus or Apollo. They are all talking about the same God. And Darth mentioned you could do it by finding the body of Jesus Christ. Darth never mentioned the words, according to your perspective. That was never mentioned. And remember another thing. Remember that Darth is a Trinitarian. So, according to him, Jesus Christ is the Christian God. He is equal to God. He is God in essence.
Why would that show?
Why would that do? How would that be outside of God's omnipotence?
I answered. Well, you said the Christian God, not his omnipotence. Now,
why would that show Christian God can be falsified? And if we found the dead body of Christ, that would actually show that the Christian God didn't exist. Right? Now, I'm not seeing how if we found the dead body of Christ, that would show how the Christian God doesn't exist. He hasn't explained that. But if it's the case that it would show that the Christian God didn't exist, then I don't understand why he would make an argument that things can't be falsified, if he thinks, in fact, the Christian God can't be falsified. Now, even if it were the case that he does think things can be falsified, and he does think that it's possible for there to be evidence for the Christian God by virtue of the fact that it's falsifiable, right? He hasn't actually explained to us what would count as evidence for the existence of God, right? So we're just completely at a loss here, Darwin, to understand your position. On the one hand, you seem to be arguing that the 𝐷𝗚𝗏 thesis shows that things can't be falsified, and then you're saying that the dead body of Christ would falsify the Christian God. So what is your position? It just seems to be a mess.
Okay, so that was the end of the, I think it was 12 minutes and 21 seconds. That was the video clip on the YouTube channel, which is called Darwin's Greatest Hits. Okay, that's the end of that video. So again, I took out the unnecessary, meaningless argumentation, and it is clear when you listen to that conversation, number one, both of them, the atheists and Darth, are speaking about the Christian God. Also, number two, there is nothing in there that Darth ever says about from your perspective. Those words never came up. There wasn't anything about from your worldview. That never came up. Okay, now I'm going to get to the part about the agreement where Darth was mentioning to 𝐂𝐨𝐧𝐽, he said basically 3 times that he agreed with 𝐂𝐨𝐧𝐽, or if we could reach an agreement on something. Now, I'm going to let you play I'm going to play a clip related to that, but I'm going to explain first why this is actually another contradiction on Darth's behalf. Because Darth has clearly said that, okay, remember, I'm talking about Darth's worldview. I'm not concerned about the so-called Christian worldview. I'm not concerned about the so-called Bible worldview. I am speaking about one person's specific worldview, Darth Dawkins. That's the only thing I had to be concerned about. Furthermore, in order to falsify the Christian God, no, I don't have to find the body of Christ. I don't have to go on an Easter egg hunt or launch some kind of a safari to go look for the body of Christ. Remember, I'm talking about Darth's worldview. I don't have to do that in order to falsify Darth's worldview. That is of no importance to me, finding the body of Christ. Because his worldview, well, as I'm literally speaking right now, I'm falsifying his worldview. Now, getting back to the part about agreeing. Here is why it's a problem. Because Darth himself has said several things about this. I'm going to use an example. This was a clip which was from Darth when he was speaking with Scholar Fiction. Here is that clip.
I do not agree with anything in your worldview, okay?
Okay, now you heard that where he told Schuyler that he does not agree with anything in his worldview. Okay, now keep in mind, according to Darth, there are only 2 basic worldviews when you bring it down to its most fundamental level. Let me put it that way. You either have the God world or the not God world. So which category is Schuyler in? He is in what Darth would say is the not God worldview. So, that being the case, it would make no sense, for example, to have let's say Darth is standing next to two atheists. And he turns to one of them and he says, I don't believe in anything in your worldview, or I don't agree to anything in your worldview. Then he turns to the other one and he says, well, I agree with maybe 5% of what you say, or 1%. You know, this is just an example. That, according to Darth himself, and I'm not just talking about one occasion, but he has expounded on this multiple times, that anyone speaking from other than his worldview would have no grounding. It would not be something that has a justificatory path. Trying to say that right. In other words, a path that would lead to a justification or a grounding. That's the better word, because Darth likes that word. So anyone that is outside of Darth's worldview would have no grounding. Even if they say, for example, the sky is blue, the apple on the counter, or a dog wagging its tail. Sound familiar? Because Darth has mentioned that many times. He would say, for example, if he was standing with an atheist and he looked up at the sky, Darth looks up at the sky and says, yeah, the sky sure does look blue today. And the atheist says, yep, the sky looks blue today. So they could be exactly the same words. But Darth would point out that even though on the surface, you know, they appear to be exactly the same, Darth would say that one of them is either false or is not true or is contradicting the other. Darth says that every worldview, you know, basically is contradicting another worldview. So anyone who holds to the God worldview, it's going to contradict the not God worldview and vice versa. So therefore, because Darth already said that he did not agree with anything in Schuyler's worldview, and then he turns around and in the same video 3 times, or basically twice, he said he agreed with 𝐂𝐨𝐧𝐽, and 𝐂𝐨𝐧𝐽 said he's an atheist, which is in the not God world. And then the 3rd time he said, if we can come to an agreement. So he implied that there could be a case where they could come to an agreement. So Darth has, number 1, contradicted himself, and number 2, he is a hypocrite. Now, I can get to the hypocrite part, or actually I've probably already covered it in other videos. So for right now, for the time being, I'm just calling, you know, this an inconsistency or a contradiction, because he is treating 2 people differently. And this is a violation of his own criteria that he himself puts out. Okay, so I think I've explained myself clearly enough. Now I'm going to get to the other point where he talked about if God does this, or if there is a God. I'm gonna cover that right now.
If the Christian, okay, so 𝐂𝐨𝐧𝐽, if the Christian God exists.
So Darth just now said, quote unquote, if the Christian God exists. Now, here's the part where not only is it a contradiction, but it's also pure 100% hypocrisy. I'm going to show you why. Listen to this next clip.
And yes, I believe that is to be the case, but sometimes in philosophy, you can talk about counterfactuals, hypotheticals, right? So, oh my goodness, you need to calm down.
David. Is your belief in God, is your belief in the existence of God a probabilistic assessment?
No, I believe it is to be the case, 100%. I believe it with my whole...
Okay, has God revealed to you that he exists?
Yes, but this is...
Then why are you talking about if the Christian God exists?
Okay, so if I were rich, I would buy a Ferrari, right? That's hypothetical. It's a counterfactual. If A, then B. So I am myself not an atheist,
I'm a very convinced theist, right? And I have reasons for believing theism is true. But since this is a hangout with a lot of people, I'm trying to look at both ways and give arguments on both sides, right? I'm not trying to just railroad people.
Is that what the Apostle Paul did in Acts 17? Did he have both feet, both hands with the polytheists, David?
That is a red
Did the Apostle Paul argue with the philosophers on Mars Hill if God exists or God probably exists, or did he boldly assert that God did exist and that their gods were non-existent?
Okay, so that is all something that I think you can see. It's obvious that he is a hypocrite, which is not surprising at all. It's par for the course. Okay, so I will leave the link to the video, which was on Darwin's greatest hits. I'll leave that in the description area. And so that will do it for this video. Please leave any comments, and please subscribe, and please like. Okay, thank you.
The message of Christianity, as it is spoken by me, the denial of which leads to incoherence.
This is definitely different.
From a biblical, I'm only going to give you the biblical perspective.
I want your perspective. I don't.
I'm giving you my perspective is the biblical perspective.
Okay.
God belief, and by the way, I'm sure you're aware that I only defend Christian theism. In Christian theism.
Here she comes, right at us. Watch them come together. There it is. Look out. Wow, some smash.
Listen to me carefully. The reason why I have to be so assertive is because I have this teenage mentality. Listen carefully.